OPPO reached out to us to help promote their new Reno10 Pro Plus 5G because apparently this thing has a killer camera. So today we're going to be comparing it to Samsung's Galaxy S23 Plus and comparing a bunch of different things, including the cameras, designs, displays, and more. So let's cut to the chase and jump straight into the cameras. As you can see, this camera bump on the OPPO is a beast. Look at it. It definitely looks like it's packing some power in there compared to these three little bumps on the Galaxy. And here you can even see the little Periscope camera within it right there. I'm super excited to test that out. Now, comparing the actual camera specs, the S23 Plus comes with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto. But on the Reno10 Pro Plus, we have a 50 megapixel main, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 64 megapixel Periscope telephoto camera, which sounds absolutely insane. But what makes it even better is that the Reno10 Pro Plus actually has a Periscope telephoto camera with a sensor that is 388% larger than the telephoto sensor in the S23 Plus. And then moving over to the front, the S23 Plus has a 12 megapixel selfie sensor, which is pretty standard, but the Reno has a 32 megapixel selfie camera, which should be a lot more detailed. And now comparing the actual camera quality, you can see that both of the 50 megapixel main cameras look very similar. They both look great. They're both very, very good. And then as far as the ultra wide cameras, even though the OPPO has an 8 megapixel, it still holds up very well compared to the one in the S23 Plus. But then moving on to the 3x telephoto, this is where the difference really starts to shine. As you can see in these photos, the portraits just look a lot better on the OPPO. Because of that huge sensor, it takes in more light, which leads to less noise and an overall better image, especially with OPPO's AI HDR, which also works very well. The awesome thing about the Reno10 Pro Plus is that when you zoom in with that 64 megapixel sensor, like let's say 6x zoom, it actually crops in on the sensor to give you almost lossless quality, which looks really good compared to the S23 Plus, which honestly starts to fall apart when you go past 3x. So the OPPO looks quite a bit better, especially when you start zooming in to 10x and even further. And this thing can even zoom up to 120x, which is amazing compared to the S23 Plus, which only goes up to 30. And one of the most important things with that huge 64 megapixel sensor is that you also get a lot better low light quality compared to the smaller 10 megapixel telephoto. You get a lot less noise. Overall, you just get so much more clarity with the image with the Reno10 Pro Plus. And then moving on to selfies, that 32 megapixel sensor is giving you a lot more quality. As you can see here, there's just so much more detail compared to the S23 Plus. And now moving on to comparing the designs and build quality, you might think that the OPPO is a lot heavier because of all of that tech jam-packed into it, especially with the cameras, but they're actually both around 194 grams, so they both feel great in your hands. But one thing I'm noticing as I'm holding them right now is that the Reno10 Pro Plus actually feels really nice, soft, and comfortable in your hand because the edges are rounded and so is the back of the phone, so it feels very comfy, whereas it kind of feels more squared off with the S23 Plus with that flat back, so it kind of feels a little bit bulky, kind of like it digs into your palm a little bit, so I really like the design of this OPPO. Now, as far as colors, the S23 Plus has a flat black paint finish, as you can see right here, but the OPPO has this really nice kind of gradient, shiny bluish tint that changes depending on how the light is hitting it. And it looks really cool. And as far as the actual button layouts, they're both identical, both right here on the right side only with the volume rocker and power button right below. Almost looks like they're practically the same, but I really like it. It's in the perfect spot. And now let's get into comparing the displays. The S23 Plus has a 6.6-inch flat display panel with about 393 pixels per inch. But then on the Reno 10 Pro Plus 5G, we have a 6.7-inch display that's actually curved around the edges, so it makes it look like the bezels are thinner, and it actually has 450 ppi, which is about 15% higher resolution than the S23. And then in terms of the actual peak brightness in nits, the Reno 10 Pro Plus 5G has a 1400 nit display, while the S23 is actually a little bit brighter, 1750, but they're both very bright, so they're fairly easy to see outside in the sun. But on top of that, the OPPO has a really cool feature called Pro XDR, where it's able to adjust the brightness and shoot it up on the display using the actual HDR to show brightness like it should be. For example, if I turn this off, that lamp behind me is very dull, but keeping it on, it brightens it up using the HDR display. And now testing the actual display quality with an HDR video in YouTube, you guys can see that that extra nits on the Samsung S23 is helping out, because you can see the colors are popping more on the S23 Plus right here. You're getting extra brightness, while the OPPO looks to have more natural colors that are a little bit subdued and not pushed really high like on the S23, where the saturation just looks really pushed, like you got blues, oranges, just pushed to the extreme, where this looks a little bit more natural and balanced. And on top of that, the OPPO does have a more sharp display with more resolution, so it looks a little bit more crisp compared to the Samsung. And now the last thing I want to compare is the UI differences between the two. As you can see here, we have a traditional button UI right here, where you have the app switcher, the button, and you kind of can swipe around. It's the standard Samsung UI. While on the OPPO, I really like how it's similar to how the iPhone is set up. You have kind of like your news and other stuff right here. You can swipe between your different pages, and then when you swipe up and stop, you actually have your app switcher where you can close apps just with a flick of a finger. I really like this UI a lot better. And another big difference is the charging speed. The S23 Plus supports 45-watt fast charging, while the OPPO supports 100-watt Super VOOC charging with the charger that comes in the box. Which, by the way, the Samsung does not come with a charger in the box. And then this thing can hit 50% in just 10 minutes of charging, or 100% in less than 30 minutes, which is absolutely insane. So much faster charging than the S23 Plus. So with all that said and tested, I've honestly gotta say that the OPPO Reno 10 Pro Plus 5G is a better purchase, especially with that 64 megapixel Periscope telephoto lens. This is just a really good phone, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and click the circle above to subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.